Now we'll do the passenger side pre-trip. We will check our clip lights, hazard/turn signals, and reflectors. I have 2 amber clip lights and 1 red clip light, an amber turn signal/hazard clip, and a red turn signal/hazard clip in the rear. I have 1 amber reflector and 1 red reflector. I would make sure that all the items are of proper color, that they are all clean and clear, not cracked or broken, that all the items have proper screws and bolts, and that they are secure to the bus. I would also say I would check the other side of the bus the same way. We'll check about the emergency exits. In this case, their windows will point to them all. I have my emergency windows clearly and legibly marking the exits with lettering. I'd also check to see that the reflective tape is in place and secure. I would say I would also check the other side of the bus the same way. We'll check our other windows and rubber molding. I would check all my windows to make sure they are clean and clear, not cracked or broken, and that the rubber seals are not dry rotted, cracked, ripped, or torn, and that all the windows and molding is securely in place. The reflector tape. Check our reflector tape. I would check my reflector tape to make sure it is not damaged and still attached and secure. Remember to say I would check the other side of the bus the same way. Before we move under the bus, we'll check the DEF fuel cap for security and not leaking. Now we'll check our exhaust and clamps. The exhaust from the front of the bus to the rear appears to be straight. The exhaust has no cracks or breaks, no black residue indicating leaking. The clamps are in place, and all the screws and bolts appear to be present, securing it to the bus. Now I would check my frame. From the front of the bus to the rear, there should be no cracks, breaks, wells, and isn't worn. The frame should be straight and also should have no holes other than the manufactured holes, and I would make sure that it has the proper screws, nuts, and bolts securing it to the bus. While checking my frame, I will also be checking the cross members from the front of the bus to the rear. These items should be present so that the bus doesn't shift. I will make sure that the proper screws, nuts, and bolts are in place holding it secure to the bus. I would remember to say I'd check the frame and cross members in the front and the rear of the bus on the other side of the bus the same way. Next, look at the bottom of the floor and tell the examiner that you would examine the floor for any damages, gouges, punctures, and that the floor is securely attached to the bus with the proper screws, nuts, and bolts. I would check the condition of the floor the same way throughout the underside of the bus. Now we'll check our drive shaft. My drive shaft appears to be straight with the U-joints and clamps in place and greased. It has no cracks, breaks, wells, and isn't worn. All the screws and bolts appear to be in place, and it is secure to the bus. The hangers are all present and there to catch the drive shaft if it should break and fail. Next, we'll be checking our rear spring mounts, leaf springs, spring guides, and U-bolt. I have my spring mounts both sides, leaf springs, spring guides, U-bolt, shock absorbers. The items are not cracked, broken, welded, or worn. The spring mounts should be properly greased and the leaf springs should be aligned with none missing. The leaf springs should be straight. I would make sure all items have the proper screws and bolts and they are secure to the bus. I would check all of these items the same way all around the bus. I have butted rims and wheels. There should be no obstructions between the tires and are properly spaced. The tires should have 85 to 95 psi of pressure. I'd check the pressure with a tire gauge. There shouldn't be any less than 2/32 of an inch tread depth. There needs to be even wear, and you can have recapped or retreaded tires in the rear, but they need to be the same size and matching. When you do this, point to the side of the tire. My tire shouldn't show any cracks, rips, gouges, bubbles, or tears. I check to make sure the rim isn't embedded in the tire. I check to make sure the rim wasn't dented or broken. The wheel seal shouldn't have any cracks, breaks, or wells, and no leaks. The lug nuts and wheel seal bolts should all be present and showing no rust trails, which would indicate looseness. I would also check the looseness in the bolt holes. I'd make sure that all the items in my wheel system are properly secured. Then I would say, lastly, I'd check the other side duals on the bus the same way.